Hi there, hello there. Today we are baking and I'll be making a cake inspired by Sora's Keyblade from the game series Kingdom Hearts. I was asked to bake this by Square Enix in celebration of Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out soon. I'm a massive fan of Kingdom Hearts, so I'm so excited. Kingdom Hearts 3 is a powerful story of friendship as Sora and his friends embark on an adventure. The setting of the game involves Disney and Pixar worlds, and the story of Kingdom Hearts follows the journey of Sora, joined by his friends Donald and Goofy. And the goal is to stop Heartless from taking over. The Keyblade cake we are baking today is inspired by Sora's Keyblade, the Kingdom Key. To start out, we are going to bake 3 cakes in this tin. It is a deep rectangular tin. Here are the ingredients for my cake. I have eggs, cake mix, water, and I always substitute butter and oil for applesauce. And let's get going. For today's video, I am just going to use cake mix from a box. This one requires 3 eggs, 180 milliliters of water, and again, I am using applesauce in place of the required oil. Then we mix it together, and with cake mix, you don't want to overmix it. If you do overmix it when baking, it'll start bubbling up and then form a big crack. So you want to mix it just enough. And now we butter our pan. When greasing your pan, it is normally better to use butter when baking. This will definitely ensure that the cake won't stick to the pan. Whereas if you use a spray oil, sometimes it works and sometimes it sticks. I will be making this same cake 3 times. Add the batter to the pan. And now we place this in the oven. While that's baking, I'm going to move on to the next bit, which is making the rod for the Keyblade. And for this, I'm making a custom cookie cutter. Here I have some pre-baked flan bases. I also have some plastic sheets, scissors, and tape. And these over here are the templates that I have made for cutting the main cake, so I will set these aside for later. And now to focus on the rod. For our custom cookie cutter, or rather cake cutter, I'm going to get a piece of tape ready. And you are going to wrap the plastic sheet into a cylinder shape. Make the diameter about 1.5 inches across, and then tape off the edge to hold it in place. So you should be left with a tube that looks like this. And now we take one of our flan bases, and using this, we're just going to press it down and cut out as many circles as we can. Use a spoon to gently press it out. And we keep going. It's really handy to use these plastic sheets to make cylinder cutters. It ensures that everything will stay even, and you can make the cylinder as large or as small as you need it to be. And the reason I use the flan base is because these are all perfectly level, and then I'm going to save my leftover pieces. For this next part, I'm going to make icing by adding a small dash of water to a few tablespoons of powdered sugar and stirring it together. Now I'm going to stack these 3 at a time and place a little bit of icing between each layer. So add a little bit of icing, add another one on top, add a little bit of icing, add another one on top, line them up and stick a toothpick down the center. And that is 1 stack done. So I'll place that over there and we do again. Add a little bit of icing sugar, and the last one, toothpick down the center to hold it together, and they all should be pretty perfect and even. The reason we are doing this is because when we make the rod out of the little circles, we want them to stick together and not roll about everywhere. So the icing will harden and essentially they'll be glued to each other. And later on, this should make it easier to line them up. Next, I've made these printable custom template pieces for the cake. Here I have 2 yellow pieces that will make up the main handle, as well as these little square shapes, and let's focus on the squares. The squares represent measurements for 2 additional cylinder shapes we'll need to make. Measure it against the bigger square to get the diameter of it, tape it off, and do the same for the smaller square. Now I'm going to take another flan cake, and I'm going to cut out some circles using the cylinders I just made. Then stack them up until they reach the height of the measuring squares. Stick them together using the same icing method as before. For the bigger one, it took 3, and for the smaller one, it took 2 cakes. While the icing was drying, I baked the rest of my 3 main cakes. Now that my 3 cakes are done and cooled, I'm going to cut out the main shapes. Here I have a template I made for the Keyblade tip, and I have 2 templates I made for the Keyblade handle. First thing I'm going to do is level off my cake. Then we flip this over. Place the design on top like so, and carefully cut around the template to carve the cake. repeat this for the other templates. Luckily, the design of a Keyblade is pretty flat, so we don't need to stack up cakes. You just need to cut out one of each of the templates. I am absolutely super excited for how this is going to turn out. Now we have arrived at the fun bit of putting it all together, like so. And I did remove the toothpicks while placing everything together. When baking, it's good to put a little dab of frosting under your cake. It keeps it from rolling around while you decorate. And carefully roll this back into place. Make it as straight as you can. The finished rod ended up being 60 centimeters long, if you'd like that for reference. When you measure everything out and it comes together nice, it is a good feeling. This is what the cake should look like so far. And I think it looks fun. A giant key made out of cake. Cool. If you notice, our Keyblade is still missing a handle. For the handle, I'm going to make it out of marshmallows, but we're going to save that for more towards the end of the project. And for now, let's get decorating. First, I'm going to roll out a long strip of gray fondant. You don't really want to flip fondant while you're rolling it. You want to keep it just powdered sugared on one side. Let that be for a minute and I'm going to frost the cake. Starting with the rod, I'm going to coat it to the best of my ability with a smooth layer of frosting. And then, leaving a 2-inch gap at the handle end, I'm going to roll the fondant down, flatten it against the cake, and cut off the excess. Near the handle end, I'm going to add 2 strips of fondant to add some texture detail. And moving to the key tip, I'm going to place frosting on top of the shape and place gray fondant on top. I frosted the 2 cylinder shapes as well, and I'm covering them with yellow rolled fondant. Fondant is fun. It's a bit like Play-Doh if you haven't worked with it before. It can be tricky though, so you need to work fast or it dries out and cracks. I'm also pressing the fondant in the center of it, pushing the edges up to make a spindle shape. With fondant, you want to get a piece big enough to cover the cake you're working with, and then stretch it around the cake. Now we roll out a really big piece of yellow fondant and place it over one of the long handles. Mold it around the cake and cut off the excess. Now I'm going to line up marshmallows on a wooden rod and wrap it with black rolled fondant and gently place it between the 2 large cylinder shapes. Now we do the other yellow handle. Once that is done, I use a fondant tool to make indents on the yellow fondant. And for this, I'm just pressing right into the fondant. Add a strip of blue fondant in the 2-inch gap we left. Cut my favorite shape out of the gray fondant. And roll out little gray tubes that we can link together to form a chain and hook for the end of the Keyblade. Now for my favorite part, using edible silver cake powder, I'm going to dust the gray fondant sections to make it look metallic, and add a sprinkle of edible glitter to make it sparkle. Once that was done, I covered and taped off everything but the yellow sections of the cake, and using an airbrush, I dusted on some white highlights and golden lowlights using edible food coloring. And here's the Keyblade cake. Additionally, I baked some Kingdom Hearts inspired cookies to go alongside the cake. And thank you again to Square Enix for sponsoring this video. It's been a lot of fun to make. Cookies here. Yeah, but thank you for watching my video on how to make a Kingdom Hearts Keyblade cake. I love it. I love it. Oh, so cool. And it looks good. It looks so good. we're free to cut into it. Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, but thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Kingdom Hearts 3 is out on January 29th, so do be sure to check that out. Bye!